XJ550 is in the shop, and my shop right now is just a freaking mess. CB is up on the stand, the 400 is there in the front, the bench, parts, stuff, wires, gas tanks from the last episode are just like all over the place. So I really got to get some room going in this, but I really want to find out where I'm at with this before I put it away. Ultimately, it's going to get wheeled outside, it's going to get tarped, because I really want to get this guy finished. And then once it's down off the lift, the XJ can go up there. So where I'm at right now, the most I've done at this point is I threw a battery on it. And first I was going to try and hotwire the key because there was no keys with it. So I'd actually pulled out the jumper, and then I kind of was just like, I might as well see, maybe I could drill out this key switch. So I stuck a screwdriver in there, and it just turned all by itself with the screwdriver. Quite honestly, there's no real damage. There's no way that I would ever have suspected that there was a drill put down there, because even the little subtle notches are all good, but this thing fully turns on with a screwdriver. So not good for security of the bike, great for me right now. So that was sort of the first thing I had to overcome. Turned the battery on, and I got an intermittent neutral light, which has come down to these guys. Now, I know and I've read that this fuse panel can be pretty flaky, and I was sort of trying to clean up all the little tabs, and right off the bat, one broke on me. So I have something to replace that first, and then under further testing, I couldn't get the solenoid to click, and I couldn't get the starter to turn. So I pulled the starter off and ordered a rebuild kit. We'll get to that in a second. The solenoid, yeah, I wasn't even getting a click. And by the way, I am missing a button. I just took this apart because I did order another button, but I was missing that whole setup there. So really everything to do with starting the bike, the button, the solenoid, and the starter, because the starter, even off the bike on the bench, is a no-go. So I'm figuring the brushes are worn out, or it's dirty or cruddy or whatever. We'll get to that. I've ordered another solenoid because they're very cheap, and then the fuse thing. So let's get a couple of these things out of the way first, and then see if we can bring some life to this guy. So initial inspection of this stuff shows real promise. The brushes are not worn in the least. In fact, they look almost new. I've seen videos of others of these being built, and like they've been so dirty and everything else. This shows very little use. This was a little bit dull. I just gave it a tiny little bit of a clean with some really fine sandpaper, and that's about all I'm gonna do. You know, it looks really good. All the gears and everything, the teeth all look good. Yeah, it's just not what I expected. I'm gonna kind of put it back together and just see if that alone gives me a little bit of a spin up. Because if I don't have to change any of this, I'm not gonna. Okay, so I wussed out a little bit, and I just assembled this off camera because the first two times I tried on camera, the spring flew away from me, and I actually lost the new spring and I had to use the original one. So I decided that was too hard to do and try and get it on film at the same time. But that's it. That's the assembly there. So let's get everything put back in and get this on. So really quickly, I'm going to hook up the battery and see if this clicks the solenoid while it's on the bike. There's no starter installed yet, by the way. Perfect. And as I've read, my oil light now lights up, which it's supposed to when you hit the start button. So I have solenoid clicking. I have a starter that now rolls under power. And I have one more working light. My neutral light, that's the broken fuse panel, so I'm going to replace that next. Essentially, what we have is the main fuse, the headlight fuse, the signal fuse, and the rear light fuse in a nutshell, according to what I think I can read below it. 20 amps, and these three are 10. So what I've ordered on eBay is that guy. It's essentially just a 4-way, 4 in, 4 out, just more modern fuse bank. It's a bit thicker than the original, but I think it'll be fine because without that extra tray, it will actually go down quite far. The fuse panel itself came with a whole bunch of fuses, none the same. So basically I have a 20, which is the main fuse, which matches, 10, which is the headlight fuse, which is probably the most important. I put a 7.5 on the signal fuse right now because, you know, that's pretty low on the list, and I just stuck a 5 in on the taillight fuse because there's no taillight. So I doubt that's going to be put to work at all. But that's what I have right now. I have to get these out, clipped, and just get some standard spade connectors on there and just hopefully switch one out for the other and have a more reliable fuse box. Okay, so that's basically it. I had to cut a little bit of shielding off just to get a little bit more room on the wires. These are those standard store-bought sort of cheapy connectors, and I didn't have any nicer crimp-on ones, so what I like to do is pull off the shielding. It's either blue or red or whatever. In this case, it was blue. And then I crimp it to start to get everything in place, but then I will go back, and because they're all exposed, I can then solder them up. I might even pop a little bit of shrink over and clean them over nicely. But I think this is a pretty nice clean job. Let's turn on the key and see if we get a solid neutral light. So this is going to be the first test of turning it over. Starter's in, fuse box has been replaced, solenoid is back in place, key now works, on, off, spark plugs are out, just going to see if it turns over. See if we get some spark. Really good spark. Across all four. It took a few seconds for 3 to kick in, but it's going good. So I've got good battery, good starter. My carbs won't, my carbs aren't moving at all. So I'm pondering whether or not to pull those off. Got them out, up on the bench. I decided to have a look, take off number one bottom, and oh yeah, that is a little scuzzy to say the least. Everything on these carbs was generally pretty seized, and I just figured it was from sitting, and even after just working the throttle for a minute, like, those came loose pretty nicely. The chokes, just had to work it for a little bit and they started to loosen themselves up. But yeah, based on this guy got stored with some gas or something in it. I'm not really varnishy. Yeah, it got parked with gas, definitely. So I'm gonna continue on down these. Hopefully I can get these jets out and get them clean. Right now this float is like solid. It's not really moving, but I'm hoping. I don't have a proper, parts cleaner machine or whatever, but maybe what I'm gonna do is take these four bottoms off, flip the whole thing over as is, maybe in a little bit of gasoline, and just see if some of these things, before I start cranking on things and making them irreparable, I'm just gonna maybe soak these. I can clean this out, but yeah, the stuck floats are concerning to me. So let me get set up for that. So it's a few days later, and what you probably are noticing right now is that the carbs are distinctly less shiny when they were in the last shot. And basically, in a nutshell, the floats and the valves were really stuck. The jets were really bad. Everything was basically really gummed up on this thing. I would soak it in something and see if it helped, and it, in a lot of cases it didn't. So I've been putting it through several different cleaners that I have, and I guess the acidity level of some of these cleaners took off the finish on the outside of the carbs. I've read up about it, and it is something that happens. They are recoverable. You can get them bead blasted and sort of reshined up. I actually hit a few little bits with just like the wire wheel just to see, and they do come back. And the good news is that they're really clean. I managed to get everything out without doing much damage. That was the good result of all the soaking. The bummer part is that, the finish sort of ended up like this. The second part of that is that if you look here, one of the mounts for the float on this carb is broken. I didn't do that. It came like that. If you look at the original video, this was the first one I took off, and right off the bat, that was missing. So I do have to get a new carb. It's probably going to have to be a set, but I've actually found a parts bike, which someone has completely disassembled, and they're getting rid of for pretty cheap. Not that I really wanted another one of these, but for basically the price of a replacement set of carbs, I'm getting an entire bike. So that'll sort of save me any other issues that I might have, and those comes with pod filters already as well. So that might, save me other aggravation that possibly might come up on the bike. I was actually in the market for a frame without an engine, which is basically what that bike is. So it's kind of a win-win all around. So these are the carbs that I got off the parts bike. Inside, immaculate. I haven't really gone into what the jetting is set to or anything else. I kind of just made sure they were all there. I had to replace, actually from my original carbs, all the ties, the fuel ties that go between them, because these just have all shrunk. Those are just O-rings, but this middle guy where the actual fuel line comes in, they were all dripping terribly. So I kind of took them apart a little bit. There was also some springs on the actual mechanisms that were missing that I'm assuming he just kind of lost or just fell by the wayside. So I used my original carbs to help me put these together. But as you can see, bike sounds great. Some of the bonus stuff that also came with the parts bike, it's like I've got the crankcase breather, I've got a nice set of pods, so I don't have to track those down right away. Yeah, and just all kinds of odds and ends. But with this, I have a great foundation. The other bike also has really good tires, but not what I pictured for this. So I may use those for something else. I have plans for that bare frame anyway. The other bonus that I wasn't expecting to get is these pipes on this bike. Although they look great here, as soon as they go underneath, and I don't know if I can show it, it's the collector is toasted. There's gaping holes, and this into the collector is one solid piece. So there was going to have to be a lot of welding or possibly buying a new whole set. But as it happens, my parts bike came with a mint condition 4-in-1 Mac exhaust. They have been painted, but they're in awesome condition. I will probably use just because I have it. I'll see what it looks like, but it gives me beginning options without having to put out a lot of coin in the beginning. So that was a bonus. That I didn't know I was getting with the bike. I thought I was just getting the carbs. As well, you know, now I have a front fender. I've got extra tanks. If you didn't think I had enough tanks before, 2 came with this bike. The original style on this, as well as, I guess, a tank from a Seika or something. This one's had a few dings in it. Just been looking at whether I want to go this direction or not. Obviously, I still have the Honda tanks and everything else to pick from. So now that this is going, we can comfortably put it away knowing we've got a lot of different options that we can go with this, which is great. This guy is pretty much ready to ride. There is a front brake issue that I've ordered some parts for. Hopefully that's going to be good soon because I really want to get a riding video on that. I've been out on a little bit. It's actually super comfortable to ride. Super happy with the way it feels. And the positioning and stuff. So I really want to share that because it would be a nice wrap up to that. And then, yeah, this guy. Let's get this out in this season and in the dirt. I'm really stoked about that. That's enough for me. I got to get this cut and I got to get it out because it's been plaguing me for far too long and putting everything else on hold. So I'm going to finish this, cut it, hopefully get it up today, and then just get this place sorted. Get working on that, get riding that, get this back in storage, and get all the rest of this crap somewhere. Get some tanks up on the wall or something. I don't know. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for sticking it through. Thank you for tuning back in. I know it's been a few weeks, like I said. Just trying to get things back into shape and get some good stuff happening in the good weather that's finally here. It's been a terrible spring. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe. Say hi down below, and we will catch you really soon in the next video, and hopefully this place is back on track.